right, we're good to go.
Cool.
Welcome to another edition of Full Court Press with Coach Jay. I am Coach Jay. I have a special guest on today. He's one of my good friends, Coach Aram Puranuk. And I probably butchered his first name, but
there you go.
We've already talked about it.
You did fine, man.
All right. So I'm going to let him.
It's all good.
So I'm going to ask you a question that I start everybody out with, just a little funny question that I like to ask. And we'll go from there as it pertains to getting started. So as a coach, when was the first time that you took that one whooping and it made you be like, golly, this coaching thing is going to be real. Maybe I got into the wrong business, whatever it may be.
The first whooping I took was when I was coaching. They were kids, like maybe 8 or 9 years old, maybe 10. I can't remember exactly how old they were. It was a little boys team. And like before my first opportunity in coaching, like we won a lot of games, and it had nothing to do with me. It had to do with had good players, which is, how it usually works. But I remember I was coaching this little boys team, and we were terrible. We were awful. And that's when I realized, oh, I actually have to do something. I have to actually teach them something. And once I figured that out, we lost our first 7 games, and they weren't close. And then we didn't lose again until the championship game. And the team that we lost to had blown us out the first time. And in that last game, we lost by it was single digits. I don't know what it was, but that's when I realized I don't care if you got good players or bad players, you have a job to do. And you can make a difference in what happens. Now, you're not going to score any points or get any rebounds or whatever, but you can have an impact on your team. And from that point on, it was like, all right, I have to do more than just coach the game. I have to teach the game. I have to teach them, like I said, whether they're 5 years old or whether they're, college, elite professional athletes, there's still things to learn. It's still my job to teach them. And so, I have to do my part, and it's not enough just to stand on the sidelines and call a timeout, or call a play or whatever. You have to prepare them. And so that was my, you better get your act together if you're going to do this,
Right.
It's not good enough to just stand on the sideline and put coach in front of your name.
Right. So let me ask you this here. Tell the people who are watching a little bit about yourself, because some people may not know who you are, and then tell us a little bit about your coaching journey and how you got into coaching.
This is the first season in 20 years. Of course, the season just ended, but this is the first season in 20 years that I haven't been on a sideline with some sort of college program. My first opportunity was with the club team at North Carolina. And I didn't know such thing existed. But that was like, wow, I'm getting to coach at Carolina. It wasn't paid, it was not the same as obviously the Carolina team or any other college program, but it was still good players who had opportunities to go other places and decided they wanted, the education, but still wanted to play ball. So had a very good time with that. Won a lot of games, again, not because of me, because I had some really talented players. And then I did a lot of camps. I used to travel the country every summer for from June until the middle of July, going to Indiana, going to Texas, going to, Maryland, going all over the country, literally, to work camps. And, I got paid doing it, but obviously the travel expenses, offset that. So I had a great time doing that. Did some AAU, did some youth ball. And then I started at Coker College down in South Carolina, Division II school. From there, I went to the apprentice school, which a lot of people may have never heard of, but the apprentice school is one of the best opportunities in the United States to go to school for free, play basketball at the collegiate level, and get paid. And so I was there, and honestly, that was probably my best experience, because the players that I coached there, I know today that they're set up for life. I can't necessarily say that about any four-year school I ever worked at, because they got a degree just like the other thousands of people every year. Not to say that I didn't have an impact, but at the apprentice school, I know that's the greatest impact that I ever had in coaching. Was the 6 or 7, or I don't know how many years I was up there, in Newport News, Virginia. From there, I went to UNC Asheville as a Dobo video coordinator. Fill in the blank, do whatever comes your way. From there, I went to Presbyterian College as an assistant. After that, I worked at a prep school, and that was, interesting. From there, I went to Johnson & Wales, where we ended up winning a national championship. It was a really cool experience. Was an assistant coach there, then was the head coach there, and that was back in 2019. And then this past season, coached a church league team and won a championship. Also coached 2 other church league teams and didn't win a game with those 2 teams. So, and it's when you win, it's probably because you've got good players. When you lose, it's probably because players aren't so good. But I know that, like I said, ever since that experience with those little kids back, 20 years ago, however long it was, it's been, I've taken it very personally that I make sure that I do my best to help my players, be as good as they can be, as people, as players, the whole coaching round. So, coach good players, coach bad players, it doesn't matter to me. It's how can I help them be better?
Right. So who was your biggest coaching influence along the way with coaching, and who were your mentors?
And if I know you're going to ask a question later that talks about what would you tell a young coach? Mentors, I really haven't ever had one. And that's probably the biggest mistake that I ever made in coaching. I learned through, like, I've got a whole bookshelf of books. I learned by coaching like I said, from 5-year-olds to whoever I could coach, just being in a gym, working with them, watching YouTube videos, whatever the case might be. Like, my mentor is my experience. And I know that I learned a ton from that. But on the other hand, from the business of basketball, from how basketball works off the court, I learned that through experience too. But it wasn't the best for my coaching career. In any case, I learned from every experience that I was a part of, whether it was good things, bad things, what I should do, what I shouldn't do, going to coaching clinics and taking notes, but not necessarily taking that and saying, all right, I'm going to do that tomorrow or at my next practice. It was more about watching how coaches.
Few difficulties there.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm not sure what happened, if that was my end or what. But anyway, so my mentor, I have learned from my experiences, and putting myself in as many different situations. Like I said, from coaching professional players to coaching 5-year-olds, everybody, anytime I could find somebody to coach, I was trying to coach them. And that's where I've gotten, that's where I've gotten where I am is just by working at it. My wife has probably had the biggest influence on me is when it comes to mentor, because she played, she coached, she has a completely different perspective than I had, before I met her or whatever. And so she has really helped me understand a lot of things that either I was naive to or ignorant about or whatever when it comes to, the business of the game. But when it comes to actually coaching the game and basketball, I'm telling you what I used to think 20 years ago is probably not anywhere close to what I think now. As far as, it's amazing when you're in so many different environments and hear so many different coaches or a part of so many different things, your philosophy and your perspective, like it completely changes. And I mean, what I thought 10 years ago is completely different than what I think now. And I'm sure if I'm still coaching in 10 more years, it'll be even more different. So it's just a constant learning process, and mentors and all that stuff. Like I said, when it comes to my career in basketball, not having a mentor probably hurt me the most. But when it comes to learning how to coach and being a coach and being a good coach, I don't think there's any better teacher or mentor than experience. And the more, whether they're good players or bad players or high levels or low levels, or like it doesn't, like, if you want to be a better coach, you just got to do it. You just got to get out there and do it and read about it and watch it and soak it up and not agree with everything and not disagree with everything, but figure out what fits you and what fits, the players that you're coaching.
So ultimately, when you taking over a program or you're going into a program, talk about what it's like to build. Yeah. Talk about what it's like to build that culture when going into a program and you're taking over a particular program.
Okay, so I knew you were going to ask this question. And I was thinking the whole time. I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? And I think I have a fairly unique story that is really interesting to me when it comes to the topic of building a culture. So at Johnson New Wales, I was an assistant. We won a national championship. And of course, when you win a national championship, everything's right? Why would you ever change anything? And then Coach King left to coach football, which is what she's always wanted to do. And she's actually with the Redskins right now. And that's great for her. And so I filled in. And we are different in not every way, but in a lot of ways. When I was her assistant, I had no issues, no problems, she ran the program the way she wanted to run it, and it worked for her. And like I said, we won a national championship. We won our last game of the season. We put a ring on our finger. We got the trophy, cut down the nets, all that stuff. And it was great. But when I take over the program, like I said, I'm not her. And I can't do things the way that she wanted to because that's not who I am. And so and I didn't recruit the players that were there. So to me, that's when the culture. Do you keep losing me, or am I still there?
You're here. It just goes out and comes back in real quick. But
okay. Anyway, so to me, like, the culture building process starts in the recruiting process. Initially it starts in the staff hiring process and then in the recruiting process. And whether you're a high school coach, maybe you can't recruit, but it starts with who's on your staff and what players you allow to join your team, whether they're, talented or not. And so I was in a situation where I really didn't get to hire the assistant. I didn't recruit the players. And so, not that I'm trying to change things 180 degrees and do everything completely different, but there are certain things that I wanted to do a different way because it fit me. And it was funny. Initially, everybody was on board with that. Oh yeah, man, like this is great, blah, blah. But then when things got real, when the rubber met the road, when there started to be some rebellion against that standard and against that culture I was trying to set, it wasn't so fun anymore. And so we still made it to the Final Four. We lost to the number 1 seed in overtime in the national tournament. So we still had a good season, from a winning and losing perspective. But like, if you don't carefully select the players that are on your team, and if you don't carefully select who's on your staff, whether that's one assistant or 10 assistants, you're going to have a real hard time with your culture, even though you might win. And this kind of ties in back to, when at the apprentice school, the first recruiting class that I helped bring in, we had some Division I level talent. The reason they didn't play at a Division I level school was they didn't have test scores. They transferred, whatever the case was. We won 6 games that year, and it's because those kids didn't ever play a game because they couldn't handle what the apprentice school was about. Only 2 of them ever actually practiced. So like I said, we won 6 games or 7 games that year. We were down to 6 players by the end of the year. And it was a really hard season. But the next season, we brought in a bunch of kids that fit the culture of what the school was about, what the program had to be about. And for the next 4 years, we won a lot of games. We had 100% retention as far as, kids finishing the program academically. And like, life was so much easier because we brought in kids that fit what the culture needed to be. And so, I mean, it's all about your people. It doesn't matter to me what you want your culture to be. And that's, to me, it's what fits you. I don't think there is a perfect definition for a perfect culture, but whatever you decide that you want your culture to be, I think you have to have the people, like your staff, first of all, and then your players. They got to be on board before they join the team, before they are a part of it. They have to say, okay, that's something that I can get on board with. And there's always going to be, rebellion or they're always going to test the standard, whatever that is. But if you don't get them on, if you don't ask them, are you okay with this from the get-go, you're going to fight an uphill battle. And I think a lot of times coaches have people on their staff because they're their friends, or because somebody else recommended them as, oh yeah, this person's going to be really good. They're really good at X's and O's or skill development or whatever, but they don't ever sign on with the culture that's trying to be implemented. And the same thing with players, even if it's high school. If you have tryouts, you get to choose who's on your team. And if you pick players to be on your team that aren't, willing to follow the standard, then that's on you as the coach, in my opinion. And yes, it's all about teaching and growth and helping people and giving people second, third, and fourth, and fifth, and sixth, and seventh chances. But at some point, if you want to have a certain culture, then certain people don't get to be a part of that because they can't buy in. And so, like I said, I don't think everybody's got a different idea of what culture should look like. And I think that's great. I think that means that you're being who you are as a coach, which is probably the most important thing that you can do. But if the people who are in your locker room and your staff, if you choose the wrong ones, and not that they're bad people, but if they can't get on board with your culture, I was able to get on board at Johnson & Wales with her culture, even though I didn't necessarily agree with everything that every decision or everything that she did, but I was on board with that. It works for her. And it was consistent, whatever her decisions and whatever she did were consistent all the time. Even though I didn't necessarily agree with all of them, doesn't mean they were right or wrong. And so I think that's, you got to know who you are, and you got to have people on board that, like I said, don't necessarily agree, but can get on board. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make when it comes to building a culture at their programs.
Let's talk about practice planning. How much time do you think should be allotted to plan an individual practice, no matter the level, just,
Sure.
well, let's say high school or college. How much time
Yeah.
do you think will be allotted?
Well, I know we're talking about kind of team practice in high school or college. Me and my wife worked starting about a year ago, actually, working with about 50 kids who, if you asked them who LeBron James was, they would have no idea. If you said who's Steph Curry, they would say, I have no idea. If you asked them to go stand on the free throw line, they would have no idea. Never watched basketball, never played basketball, nothing. We would spend, and we still do spend, except for COVID-19, hours talking about how we're going to help these kids. So if we're going to spend hours, I'm talking multiple 2 to 3 hours talking about how to help some 5 to 10-year-old kids how to get better, then I think you got to spend hours talking about your high school team, your college team. I think it's the most important thing that you do. Like, what happens in games, like we like when we coach the little church league teams that we had 3 church league teams this past winter. We talked for hours about what are we going to do in our one practice a week. We would talk all week about how we're going to practice the next practice. Games, we started the first 5 people who showed up. There was no discussion about games. It was about how are we going to help these kids in the 1 hour. We had 1 hour practice. We would have a 1 hour practice, and we would talk for hours over the course of the week on how we're going to take the most advantage out of that 1 hour practice to help those kids, get better. And so when you're, as a college coach, if you're getting paid to do this, right? Or if you're a high school coach, I know you've got, classes to teach and this and that, but to me, practice is the most important. There's nothing more important than practice. Now, when you're a college coach recruiting, obviously, if you don't have players, you have to recruit. But the other thing is you gotta be on board with practice. And it's not just, to me, it's not just, okay, well, what are we going to work on? Yes, you need to talk about that. So how do you know? Are you watching film? Are you filming practice? Are you, going back and watching games? But then how are we going to work on it? And how can we get the most repetitions for our players / how can we help them improve the most in this specific amount of time? And I mean, it's like, I don't think, yes, I guess you can't go overboard and spend too much time, but I don't think people spend enough time planning practices. I think so many people have their little practice plan. Some people don't even have a practice plan, which is crazy. But then they just take their practice plan from yesterday and they, cross out a couple things, add 5-10 minutes here and there and move on with life. And maybe that works for them. That's great. But for me, like, if you have your roster 1 to 12, your best player needs something different than your worst player does. It's just how it is. Your shooter needs something different than your slasher. If you have post players, or your starting 5 needs something different than the next 5. And so how to maximize that, whatever it is, hour and a half, 2.5, 3, whatever practice time you have, how to maximize that for all of your players. How can I use my staff the best? How can I use my managers the best? Some of us are used to having one coach. Like me, when I didn't have assistants, I didn't have managers. It was me, and 12 players. And then obviously when you get to the major Division I levels, you got head coach, 3 assistants, Dobo, video coordinator, 5 graduate assistants, 17 student managers, all this stuff. And like, I can't imagine have that many resources. I don't know what I would do. But how can because the practice time is, you got the 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever it is. How can I make the most of this for my players? And then, okay, well, if Johnny needs individual work on something, can I get Johnny in the gym before practice, in the morning, whatever? Like, how can I bring Johnny along when Johnny's really needs some individual attention on this one thing, so I don't have to spend the whole practice helping Johnny when the other 11 people don't need as much work on that thing. So like it's really to me, because basketball is a team sport. But the team is made up of individuals. And so how can I help the individuals the most and not lose focus on, okay, well, what do we need to do as a team? And it's like, to me, planning a good basketball practice it's hard to do. It takes a lot of time, and it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, because every team's different. Every situation's different. And maybe I'm a junkie and I don't know how to do anything else except talk about basketball, but it's what I love to do. And so, for the time that I'm with my players, like I said, whether they were 5 years old or 8 years old and never touched a basketball before, and we have 45 minutes, how can I get the most out of those 45 minutes? Or if I have a college team or a high school team and I have 2 hours, how can I get the most, not only for my team, but for individuals for that 2 hours? And I don't think you can spend too much time talking about it and getting input from, if you're the head coach, getting input from your assistants. If you're the assistant coach, like watching film or thinking to yourself, okay, well, how can we get better? And presenting those ideas. And I don't know, to me, it's, like I said, it's the most important thing that you can do besides recruiting, but that's a completely different, that's a completely different thing. But yeah, I don't think you can spend too much time, and I know time's limited, but that's where I would want to spend my time the most if I'm coaching a team.
So with that being said, would you say that skill development is very important?
Yeah, and that's where it's hard for me when you have a team practice. Like, if you can make your individual players better, the whole team thing doesn't matter as much. But to have a really good skill development session, it's hard to do that with one coach and 12 players, or two coaches and 15 players, because you're not really getting the attention to detail that you need. You're not getting the amount of reps that you need. And this is where you think about, okay, if I have 3 hours for practice, I can have practice from 5 to 8. I have that whole time in the gym. Well, maybe like I bring in one group of players for 45 minutes to do skill development, and then we have an hour and a half or 2 hour practice, and then I have the other half for 45 minutes after, so that I can get, me and my staff can get a lot of individual time to work on those skills, whatever they are. I mean, there's obviously, everybody can get better. But then I still have my time for my team, where when we're all together, we know, all right, now we're working on our plays or our defense, or, whatever team concepts that we want to work on. But when we're in our smaller groups, it's like, all right, we're going to get better at our ball handling or our shooting or closeouts or whatever individual thing that is. And like with our teams this winter, we had skill development sessions for practice. we didn't run plays. We had skill development sessions. And I don't think you can do it enough, because if you have skilled players, the plays and all that, they don't matter a whole lot. I mean, the game is more and more, can you play one-on-one? If you can play one-on-one and you can beat your defender, then the game just got a whole lot easier, whether that's off the ball screen or not. If you can play one-on-one, it makes everybody better. And on the other side, if you can defend one-on-one, it doesn't matter if you're up the line, on the line, if you're pack line, if you're, can you keep your player in front of you? And if you can, defense gets a lot easier for everybody else. Rebounding gets a lot easier for everybody else. I don't care if you're playing man or zone or whatever, it doesn't matter. Can you play one-on-one? And so then, can you play one-on-one turns into, how it turns into skill development. How am I preparing to catch the ball? How am I preparing to shoot? Can I create space with the dribble? Can I come off a screen? Can I defend a screen? Can I defend a cutter? That's all skill development to me. How to play? How can I play one-on-one in all the different situations that are out there that occur on the court? And so, that turns into competition too. If you're playing on one-on-one, you're competing, and it isolates you and puts you on the island and say, can you get it done or not? And so, yes, you have to play 5-on-5. That's how the game's played. You can't just, you can't just do skill development one-on-one, but if you can play one-on-one, it becomes a lot easier to play 5-on-5. And so that's yes. I don't practice planning. In the practice plan, how are we going to develop our skills the most? That's what I like. How can we get better as individuals the most? So that when we go play 5-on-5, it's like, oh, this is a lot easier now.
With that, what would you say that two of your most important qualities are as a coach? If people ask about you and who you are, what would they say that your two important qualities are as a coach?
I hope number one is that I would do anything for my kids or anything for my players, whether they're kids or young adults or whoever they are, that I would do anything for them and not breaking the rules, not breaking the law, but that I'm a resource for them. On the court, off the court, in the classroom. I could tell you stories for days about some of the situations that players that I've coached continue to live in. And it's sad. And it's not necessarily just low income or, a certain race or a certain, like it's white, black, rich, poor, middle class. It's the whole spectrum. There is no like only certain people have it. We all have problems. But hopefully the number one thing is that I'm there for them if they need me. And that's like that, like I was saying about the apprentice school, that's one of the, like, of all of the national championship and all that kind of stuff, the most, like, I can look back at the apprentice school and say, those kids are better now. And maybe they couldn't shoot a jumper any better than they could when they got there. Maybe they got worse as a player. I don't know. But I know as people, they're good. And they're set. In fact, it's crazy. One of the kids that I recruited there, I can't do this, coach. Went from I can't do this, I can't come here to now the head coach of the team. That's crazy to me. But that's something I can be proud of. And I can't say that about the other places as much as I can say about that place. So like that's number one is hopefully every player that I've coached, whether they like me or not, whether they agree with me or not, they know that I care about them and they know that I would do anything for them if I could. The other thing is I'm going to work. Like I said, I'm not getting paid to coach 3 church league teams, but spend hours and hours every day talking about what we're going to do in practice. Like I'm going to put my most into my you call it profession, my addiction. Coaching is an addiction. I love it. And I love being on the court, and I love helping the players get as much as they can out of me, and just constantly trying to learn and watch and read and perfect the craft that can never be perfected. You'll never be a perfect coach, and I never will be. But trying to get as like one of our shirts says, chase excellence, not perfection. Trying to be excellent, working as hard as I can to be as excellent as I can be, because I'll never be perfect. And trying to convey that to the players that I'm coaching, whether you're 5 and never touched a basketball, or whether you're 25 and trying to play, in a professional league somewhere. you'll never be perfect, so don't even try, but just be excellent. And that's what we're constantly preaching to our players is be excellent, and that'll take you a long way. So that's, like I said, that's I hope that's what people would say about me. I'm sure some people might say some other things, but you can't make everybody happy. So it's doing the best you can every day. Doing the best you can.
Oftentimes it's said that a team takes on a coach's identity. What would be the identity of your team?
I hope the two things that I just said, that we're going to care about each other, whether we like each other, whether we agree with each other, whether, we have the same backgrounds or different backgrounds, the same religious beliefs or different religious beliefs, political, whatever the case is, like, we're going to care about each other, and we're going to work as hard as we can to be as good as we can be. And that's going to look different with different teams. So, with a bunch of kids who have never played before, they're looking at you with big eyes because they don't know what's going on, right? They're just like, this is shock to their system. They don't know. And then, when you're coaching college level kids, they're constantly evaluating you. Look, does he know what he's talking about? Right? Why are we doing this? And constantly asking, like, why? I remember the first time a player asked me why. This is when I first started. I was an idiot. I said, because I said so. I learned real quick that didn't work. That doesn't work. Because you said so doesn't work. Like, when you're coaching the better players that you coach, you better have a good reason for doing what you're doing, because they've had a lot of coaches over the years and they've done a lot of different things. And so, not to say that you're wrong, maybe you're different than what they've been taught before, but you need to be able to tell them why you're doing whatever it is you're doing. And I think as long as you have good reason for it, it can be different than what they had before. But it's like I said, it's caring for each other, whether it's on the court or off the court, not agreeing with each other, not liking each other, but having a respect and caring for each other, and then working your butt off. And for a coach, working your butt off looks different than a player. But if I'm not watching film, if I'm not playing in practice, if I'm not recruiting, if I'm not keeping up with their academics, if I'm not doing my part, they're not going to know that necessarily. Like, they're not going to see what I do or don't do, but they're going to know when I walk in the gym that this guy's making it up as he goes. Just like, if your players aren't eating right, out partying too late, or having a bad situation at home, whatever, or maybe, they're just not working very hard in the gym. You see that every day, and you can call them out on that. But I think players are not stupid. Even the young kids, they might not be able to say, okay, well, so-and-so, but they can see through when somebody doesn't know what they're doing. It's the people are not stupid. They might not be able to put their finger on it. They might not be able to say, okay, this is what it is. But if you're not, as a coach, if you're saying, hey, you all need to work hard, but you're not putting the work in yourself, then they're going to see through that. You got to be genuine in what you do. And I think players know when you might fool them for a little while, but I think eventually the truth comes out. And again, they might not know exactly what that is, but they sense it. And so I think it's really, really important to work hard at what you do, if you're going to expect your team to work hard. And that goes to how you treat, how do you treat your family? Because if you treat your family like crap, I don't know how you can coach a team. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me, because they're a family too, and so it's not just, like I said, it's not just watching film or practice planning or whatever. It's the whole, are you real about how you live your life, and then, so that they can be real with what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, this is another thing I learned. I'm not much of a coach if I don't have any players. I can't coach a team if it doesn't have any players on it. It's not much of a team. So like, how do I get this team? How can we get on the same page? And I think you got to care about each other. And I think you got to work hard. And everybody's got to. It can't just be like, your best player or your best assistant or whatever. Like, it's got to be everybody. And I think whether you win or lose, because I worked really hard with two of those teams that didn't win a game this year. Worked really hard. We didn't win a game. Got blown out a lot. But the experience was good, was positive. And they saw themselves getting better, and they knew that we were working hard for them, and they worked hard in return. I think and they know we cared about them, like we cared about them. And so I think that's the two things that, you got to do that. And if you do, and they know that, and they know that's real, they'll do whatever you tell them to do. And they'll have fun doing it. It'll be an enjoyable experience, or, coaches making me. It's like, man, I want to do this because I like being in this environment. I like being around my teammates. I like being around my coaches. I like this culture, that we talk about. And people like it. They want to keep doing it, and they want to get better at it. So that's, I don't know. I tend to, if you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, I don't know what I would have said. But things get really basic. I guess the older I get, the things just get more and more simple. Care about people and work hard. And when you do that, like, things just tend to work out okay for you, even though you might not win a championship or whatever. Or maybe you do win a championship. I don't know. But if you care about people and work hard, it goes a long way, I feel like.
With the team being coached by you, if you were in a defense and you had to go to it to get a stop, what defense are you going to and why?
Man-to-man. But I can't sit here and say, oh, we would be deny everything, or we would be in the gap or whatever. What I want to do is I want to take away what you do best and make you beat us some other way. So, like, that's how I think about defense, is maybe it's your best player, maybe it's maybe it's a certain action you run, a certain play, and that you just are like, I want to take away, I'm going to make you beat us with your second or third or fourth best option, whether that's your third or fourth best player or your third or fourth best, action or play or whatever. And I think you do that best playing man-to-man, because you can play man-to-man and still play zone. And whether that's you playing a matchup zone or you're literally just not guarding somebody, like, I'm not going to guard him or I'm not going to guard her. And, that defender's just going to stand in the middle of the lane and keep people from getting layups. I mean, I used to be all pressure, deny everything, up the line, on the line with everybody. And then, played matchup zone, and that was a whole nother world. All we did is play matchup zone for a whole season, and it worked. It worked. We didn't pressure anybody. They didn't pass the ball anywhere you want to, but you're not going to get a layup and you're not going to get open three. And then played straight up zone and played, pack line, and won a championship playing pack line. So, and so to me, I have to look at my team. And if I'm in college, I'm going to get the best athletes I can get, whether we play deny or not, whether we play pack line or deny, because it gives me the flexibility to play however I want to play. If I'm in high school, well, I obviously don't have as many choices when it comes to players, but I have to look at my personnel and say, okay, well, what's going to work the best for this group? And then when it comes down to, 30 seconds left on the clock and we're up one and you got the ball, I'm going to take away you're going to beat us with number 2 or number 3. I'm going to know what your number 1 is. I'm going to know what that is because I've watched your film. And we're going to take that away, and you're going to have to beat us doing something else. And And our team is going to know that we're going to take away number one. Like, they're going to know this ain't going to beat us. Whether it's, your best player's not going to score, or whether it's, we know they love running this play, we know they love this action, we're taking that away. They're going to beat us doing something different. And then if they know that, now they're ready to anticipate that next thing. And how we take that away, like I said, I'm a big fan of not guarding people. Like, if you can't beat us, I'm not going to guard you. And you can call it disrespect, you can call it exposure, you can name it what you want to. If you can't shoot it, I'm not going to guard you. Or if all you can do is shoot it, you're not going to catch it on the perimeter. You're not going to catch it out there. You can go back door all day because we're not worried about you finishing, but you're not going to get an open three. And so taking away what you do best is I think that's my defensive philosophy, and building that around the players that we have and the people that we're going against. So when you're coaching the church league, you don't have scouting reports, but okay, well, here's the other team's best player. He's not going to beat us. She's not going to beat us. And then when you get to the high school and the college level, where you have more opportunity to scout and get scouting reports and watch film and all this kind of stuff, you can say, okay, well, they're not going to beat us doing this. And it's going to fit in with, okay, whether we're pack line or whether we're, deny or, up the line, on the line, denial, everything, or whatever your press. I mean, you can take something away even if you press. And it's, your players understanding, okay, well, we're going to take this away, whatever it is. And we know we're going to give something else up, but we know what that is. And okay, now we can react. That's my approach. And if you beat us with your third option, then your third option is better than us, and that's fine. But you're not going to beat us with number one. And hopefully we're good enough to take away your top two. But again, that's we want to take away what you do best. And I think that's most easily done playing man to man. I think you play zone, it's harder to do that. So play man to man and take away what you want to do, and then if you beat us another way, good for you.
Finally, Coach, what is your advice to aspiring young coaches, and how can they get into the business, or what should they do?
Well, I can't remember which one of your guests talked about it, but I think it's important to know where you want to go in coaching. And if you want to be a high school coach, you gotta go to college and be a teacher. It's really hard to be a high school coach if you're not a teacher. If you want to coach at the college level, either you need to have played or you need to have put in your time. And you can put in your time a lot of different ways, whether that's being a manager or a GA somewhere, or whether it's running around the country doing camps and meeting as many people as you can and going to as many coaching clinics as you can and networking or whatever. And this is something that it took me a long time to realize, you can coach and not be at a high school or a college. You can do hoops college, which is, our own thing. We don't have any quote unquote teams right now, but we're coaching as much as we can given the current situation. But there are a lot of different avenues in coaching basketball. And so you got to figure out which one you want to go down. And it was never like I said, I just wanted to coach. I don't care if you're 5 years old or 50, can't play, or, you're the best player in the world. I just want to coach. And so that's what Hoops College gives me, is it gives me the opportunity to coach anybody at any time, anywhere, whatever. Whereas if I'm at fill in your blank college or school, Division I even, you're limited to that group. And I enjoy college coaching a lot. was a great experience. Learned a lot. It's how I met my wife. Like, it doesn't get any better, but won a lot of games, all that kind of stuff. But it didn't fit me. It didn't allow me, it didn't give me the freedom to coach anytime, anywhere, because you got rules. You got somebody saying you can't work with players during this time of the year. You got people saying, you only get this much time or whatever. And so number one, I think, is knowing where you want to go. And then if you know where you want to go, you got to coach as many different people as I don't care where you want to go. You got to put yourself in as many different situations as you can. Because when you coach good players and bad players, you figure out how to coach the good ones better. Like, you got to coach whoever you can as much as you can, and then find people who have gotten to where you want to go and let them help you. And that's, like I said, in the beginning, that's probably one of the biggest mistakes in the business that I made, was not having a mentor. I didn't know how important that was. At least in the college coaching journey, I don't really, it's not a big deal right now. And now my mentors are, how to run a business. The coaching part's the easy part. It's how to run and build a business, which is a completely different, like, especially in today's world, how to apply for small business loans, like, it has nothing to do with coaching. So that's what I would say is know, like one of your previous guests said, know what you want to know, where you want to go, and you can change your mind. But if you change your mind, find mentors that are in that path and coach anybody and everybody that you can. Like, whether they pay you, whether they don't pay you, like, get as much experience coaching as boys, girls, all levels, because it's gonna help you in your development. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of work, and you might not get paid what you want to get paid in the initial stages. But, like, if you're ever doing it for the money, I think you're in it for the wrong reasons anyway. It's about helping people. It's about helping people. And I think the funny part is, the more you help other people, the more you help yourself, because you learn, you grow, you get better, not just as a coach, but as a person, when you're giving to the people that are around you. So, it's a great profession, career, addiction, whatever you want to call it. It's wonderful, but it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of time, but it's I wouldn't want to do anything else. Wouldn't want to do anything else. So that's what I would say. I don't know. Everybody's different though, so that's okay.
Well, Coach, I thank you for coming on.
Yes, sir.
This has been Monday's edition of the Full Court Press with Coach Jay. I'll be back tomorrow with another guest. 2 guests tomorrow evening. They're very special. They both played in the NBA, so be ready for that. And I thank you again, Coach, for coming on and spending some time.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're doing good stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.